And my mom and I, sadly, we never really got close. Like, I wanna be besties with my daughters. Like, when they go to college, I want them to call me every day, tell me how class was, tell me about the boys that they're dating, like, all that stuff. My mother and I, we barely know each other.
Still to this day?
It's so weird still to this day, and I love my mother. I would do anything for her, but I barely know her.
Do you think it's the way that, like, our parents grew up that happens where you feel like you don't know them? Like, maybe she didn't know her mom.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a cultural thing,
Yeah.
and we sure as hell don't talk about feelings. Like, all that stuff that happened on Housewives and when we had this dumpling party and my mom told me that she was proud of me and I sort of broke down and then she sort of broke down. People were like, "Wow, you're a really good actress." And I'm like, "No, no, honey." Like, that was real. They were like, "Certainly that was not the first time that your mother told you that she loved you and that she was proud of you." And I'm like, "I'm pretty sure it was, or I wouldn't have cried like that."
Yeah, I think it is a culture thing. We were talking before, like, obviously I didn't immigrate here, but I'm now for the first time learning way more about my grandmother and her side of the family than I ever did when I was a child. And I'm 35 years old now. And I'm like, and I have to pry the information out of relatives and friends and elderly people that kind of knew. And it's this whole weird expose where I got to like put all these pieces together to kind of like figure out who somebody really was. And I've known them my whole life. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's exactly like that. So I feel like just now I'm starting to get to the point where I'm starting to get to know my own mother, and it's sort of through the lens of my children. Because I say this and I mean this in the nicest way possible, but my mother is a much better grandmother to my daughters than she was a mother to me. Because when I was young, she wasn't around because she was working her ass off trying to make ends meet, you know. We were trying to get groceries on the table.
That's interesting that you say your mother's a better grandmother than she was a mom to me, but maybe that's sometimes I feel like how it's supposed to be if you don't have a good relationship with your parents, so you can sort of fall in love with your parents again, seeing that side of them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like when I see her interacting with my children, when she comes over and my children are so excited to see her and make signs for her, like, "We love you, Grammy," all this stuff, like, it makes me understand and know her better.
I think this is so random, but okay, there's this thing on Instagram that I saw where I told Michael to do this with his parents too, where you can buy this book and it's 150 pages. But before you buy the book, they send questions to your parents and your
Oh,
parents have to do this Q&A.
yeah.
And they fill this out and then it goes into this beautiful book, like a biography of your parents, and you're able to learn more about them. I think it's called Storybook.
No, it's called Storyworth,
Storyworth.
and I paid the money,
Oh my God, you did
and I
it.
asked my mother before I paid the whatever, $99, if she would fill these out, and she said yes. She has never filled out a single question.
For your birthday, can you ask her to fill it out?
I will ask her again, but I feel like it's she there's, like, some like, maybe she doesn't wanna answer it. I
Maybe
don't
she
know.
doesn't want to answer it.
Yeah.
Maybe there's things that she doesn't like, she wants to
Well, and like
suppress.
I think especially that because again, common ground, like immigrating here, like that generation went through a lot of hard stuff. There's a lot of like hard life that they went through to get over here, right? And so like
Yeah.
maybe some of that is hard to go and recollect.
Maybe there's something that she just doesn't want to talk about. It's almost like you have, as you get older with your parents, and I tried to do this with my parents, is you have to come from a place of empathy,
Yeah.
or else you'll just go crazy
I
and
know.
you'll take it personally.
Yeah.
I
Because
mean,
it sounds like they're clearly your parents' intention was to come here and try to build a better life for your family and for you.
Yes, yes, and don't get me wrong, like, what I say is, like, I owe everything to my parents because if they had not had the fortitude to come to America when they actually didn't know the language either, and, me dealing with racism, God, what were they dealing with in the '80s? My dad was here on a student visa and washing dishes in the back of a Chinese restaurant for $2 an hour being paid under the table because you're not supposed to work on a student visa. Like, what kind of racism did they deal with? Like, I wanna learn from their experiences, but I think they don't wanna talk about that. So maybe we shouldn't talk about it because maybe that'll bring up a lot of negative feelings for them.
it's good though. I think that this generation is talking about it.
Right.
Like, I think that that's going to be so helpful for the next generation to be able to just normalize talking about things like this.
Yeah.
How did you experience racism when you were little?
Oh my gosh. I started first grade not knowing any English. We didn't live in the best neighborhood. So, of course, kids would do the slanty eye thing and call me Chinky Chong. And a kid was, I guess, like dared by another kid to cut my hair because I always had like long, black, straight hair like silk. And so this guy came up to me at recess with a pair of scissors because his friend like dared him and just cut a snip, like just enough to where it looked crazy, right? Um, I wore glasses because I was a huge dork, and one time they fell on the floor, and instead of, like, picking them up and giving them to me, somebody actually just, like, stomped on them, like, on purpose. Kids are assholes.
This makes me emotional because having a daughter, I feel like too, you have to teach your kids, like as a parent,